All right, everybody, the time has arrived for the first episode of our Decoding Dune series, where we're going to be reading through the Dune Trilogy by Frank Herbert. Now, we're going to be starting with the first novel and reading through from there. If you didn't watch the announcement video and you want to know more about what this series is going to be, I'm going to put the link up in here somewhere. It'll also be down below in the description text so you can get a better understanding of what we're doing. But essentially, we're reading through chapter by chapter, going through Dune, Dune Messiah, and the Children of Dune, the trilogy per se that they are using to film the current movies that are airing. Um, Starting with last year's film and then this year's film, or 2 years ago, whenever it was. Anyway, I have only read these books once. Many, many, many years ago, I read through the original 6 books back, I say, when I was in my late teens, early 20s. So it's been 20, probably 25 years since I originally read these books. So I am not an expert on Dune at all. I'm kind of going into these knowing and remembering the basic story, but not remembering all of the intimate details. So I am by no means a Dune expert or a Dune scholar. We're going to be reading through these chapters, chapter by chapter, discussing things here on YouTube. So if you have things you want to add, or if you have answers to any questions that I'll be asking during the reading of this chapter, you can feel free to drop those down below. The way I do this is I read through it, not quite in a live format, but I do read onto the screen, paraphrasing things here and there, ask questions of things that I don't quite understand, pontificate about other things, and have a conversation with my viewers. So if you like all that kind of stuff, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update, whether you're watching this as a vodcast or listening to it as a podcast. Thank you so much. Don't forget to support in any way you can. There'll be a commercial break at some point through here on how you can support beyond memberships and all those good things. So let's get into this. This is chapter 1 of book 1, Dune, the eponymous title. So we start off here with a quote from the Princess Irulan called the Manual of Muad'Dib. So this is a quote around um, the birthplace of, or the time of birth for Paul Atreides, 57th year of the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV. Make sure that you understand where he was born, the planet Arrakis. I like how, they don't name him yet. They only give the title. Um, uh, Take special care that you place the Muad'Dib in his place, the planet Arrakis. Do not be deceived by the fact that he was born on Caladan and lived his first 15 years there, because Arrakis is forever his place. But we do get an inkling that this must be him because it says his first 15 years, and then of course the opening scene is rolling right into these the week before their departure. The old crone. Ooh, I like this description here. Uh, a warm night at Castle Caladan. The ancient pile of stone that had served the Atreides family as home for 26 generations bore the cooled sweat feeling it acquired before a change in the weather. That's a very interesting way to describe things. I live in a very humid environment right now with our homestead, and there's definitely, when there's a change, when there's weather's cooling down and you get like a cold front coming in, and it's gonna, whether it be raining or whatever it is that cooled sweat feeling. That's a very interesting way to describe it. I wouldn't have thought of it that way, but it's kind of like, it's not clammy, but it's like you've sweated, but now it's cooling down, and so you're still sweaty, but it's the cooled sweat. Very interesting descriptor there. Ooh, so he knows. So the old woman's arrived, the Bene Gesserit mother, and Paul sees her at the door, one step ahead of his mother. And it says here, the woman was a witch shadow, with hair like matted spiderwebs hooded round darkness of features, eyes like glittering jewels. Oh, and her voice wheezed and twanged. This is something I don't think we've ever seen in any of the film adaptations or even the TV series that the Sci-Fi Channel did. The description here is that the old woman's voice was wheezed and twanged like an untuned balisette, but we don't actually, I don't think I've ever seen or heard her in any of the adaptations speak like that. So he's giving very, um, he's focusing a lot on the sound of their voices here. He says Paul's mother answered in a soft contralto. I wonder if this is part of the reason why the David Lynch adaptation focused so much on the power of the voice, which is that was definitely a creative adaptation. Um, so she's complaining, the old lady's complaining that Paul is very small for his size. Small for his age, not small for his size, small for his age. The old woman knows he's awake and watching them. Sly little rascal. She chuckles, but royalty has need of slyness, and if he's really the Quizet Haderach, well. And then it says here, Paul, within the shadows of his bed, held his eyes open to mere slits. And the old lady drops the mention of the Gom Jabbar. And he lay awake wondering, what's a Gom Jabbar? In all the upset during this time of change, the old woman was the strangest thing he had seen. So the time of change being the fact that he's getting ready to move, you know, head to another planet. Ooh, he says he noticed here the way that she had talked to his mother like a common serving wench instead of referring to her as a Bene Gesserit lady, a duke's concubine, and a mother of the ducal heir. So the fact that his mother also referred to as your reverence, he's catching up on that, catching up on things. He mouthed her strange words, Gom Jabbar, Quizet Haderach. Okay, we're getting mention now of Thufir Hawat, the master of assassins. Getting mention of the Harkonnens, mortal enemies who had already been on Arrakis for 80 years. We made mention of the, is this pronounced Coam Company or Choam Company? And what does Coam or Choam stand for? So the Harkonnens are under a contract to mine the spice melang. And House Atreides is replacing them on the planet. Mention of his father, Duke Leto. This is interesting. So Paul falls asleep here to the dream of an Iraqi cavern, silent people around him moving in the dim light of glow globes and the drip, drip, drip of water. And it says here, even while he remained in the dream, he knew he'd remembered upon wakening because he always remembered the dreams that were predictions. Ooh. We're also getting introduced to Dr. Yue, his teacher. Lots of terminology here. The Froffeluc's class system, people sheltering at the edge of the desert without Kaid or Bashar to command them. The Will of the Sand people. Ooh, I don't remember that terminology at all. Will of the Sand people. The Fremen, who have never been counted by census among the Imperial Regat. Regat or Regate? I'm going to learn some pronunciations here. Arrakis Dune, desert planet. All right, so we notice here he's been taught by his mother some mind-body lessons with quick breaths triggering the responses into a floating awareness, focusing the consciousness, the orbital dilation. Focused consciousness by choice. This forms your grid until the morning arrives and his mother awakens him, or at least opens the door. The symbol of the Atreides, a red hawk crest above the breast pocket here. So she reveals to Paul that the Reverend Mother was her teacher at the Bene Gesserit school, and now she's the Emperor's truthsayer. This you can remember from all the adaptations. Paul, you must tell her about your dreams. Ooh, he asks his mother about the Gom Jabbar, and it says she hesitates, but he says his training that she had given him exposed her almost an invisible hesitation, a nervous betrayal he felt as fear. So this is being written in, this is something I didn't remember. I was thinking this was third person limited point of view, but this is actually like a third person omniscient, because now we're in the head of the Reverend Mother. As she's sitting in the waiting room, it says she ignored the view, but was feeling her age this morning, more than a little petulant. So we get the first hint of some sort of plans going on because the Reverend Mother is thinking to herself, Damn that Jessica. If only she'd born us a girl as she was ordered to do. Hey everyone, Renfail here with the commercial part of the video where I say, hey, if you like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. And thanks to all of our supporters here on YouTube and over on Patreon, our highest members, our guild champions, Crazy's Relative, Remy D here on YouTube. And don't forget, if you want to support, it's really easy. You can do the memberships below, the Adventurers Guild, 3 different tiers. There's also the super thanks on any uploaded video or YouTube short that you find. There's also, of course, the super chats and stickers that you could do on any live stream or premiere, and the Patreon page if you want to dive into the fantasy world that I have with my brother and my wife, which is a tabletop game, a point and click adventure game, and a fantasy book series. All are great ways to keep this channel going and me going full time. Thanks again for those of you who support. Let's get back to the video that you're watching now. Now, because I'm at least familiar with the lore of Dune, and I've watched the movies, and I did read these many years ago, along with the first few novels that Kevin J. Anderson and Brian Herbert did. Obviously, the Bene Gesserit have the breeding program, and this has been going on for generations and generations and generations. But we don't know that at the beginning of this book, right? So at the beginning of this novel, we're just being given hints of things. His mother's hand on his shoulder as they greet the Reverend Mother, and he can feel the fear through her hand, and he's wondering, what does she fear? Ooh, and this is something that this is cool because knowing what I know now, this line makes a lot more sense. The old woman is studying Paul's features, and this is how it describes it. Um, a face oval like Jessica's, but strong bones. Hair, the Duke's black, but with brow lines of the maternal grandfather who cannot be named. Well, knowing what we know, that makes total sense. So she just told Jessica to bail. She's like, leave us. You should go practice your meditation while you wait. And she doesn't want to leave. But she's like, Jessica, you know it must be done. Paul looks up at his mother, puzzled. What's going on here? Ah. His mother's obvious awe of this old woman argued caution, yet he felt angry apprehension at the fear he sensed radiating from his mother. Ooh, and he snaps at the old lady. How dare you address my mother if she's a common serving wench? And the lady responds, the old woman says, ha, the Lady Jessica was my serving wench for 14 years at school, and a good one too. Now you come here. Ooh, the command whipped out at him. Powell found himself obeying it before he could think about it. Using the voice on me, he thought. He stopped at her gesture, standing beside her knees. So this is when he's unable to resist the compulsions from the old woman. Puts his hand into the box, and here we see the Gom Jabbar held at his neck. She tells him to be honored. We seldom administer this test to men children. And curiosity reduced Paul's fear to a manageable level. Oh, this is that classic line. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. God, that is such a brilliant line of dialogue. Get on with it, old woman. Oh, she's pissed. Oh, she's, grudgingly. Oh, this is an interesting answer. He demands to know why she's doing this as his hand is in the box. And she replies, to determine if you are human, be silent. So we're told here, no woman child has ever withstood that much pain. You can take your hand from the box. And of course, nothing happened to it. Oh, this is interesting. He asks if she did this to his mother, and he says, and she replies, have you ever sifted sand through a screen? And he nods, and she says, we Bene Gesserit sift people to find the humans. Okay, so there's this moment where it says, the old woman looks at him and she goes, he senses truth. Could he be the one? Could he truly be the one? She's also reining herself in, saying, thinking to herself, hope clouds observation. So Jessica's allowed to return to the room. She's thinking to herself, my son lives and is human. I can go back on living. So as he's thinking to himself, Paul here, his mother had undergone this test. There must be a terrible purpose in it. The pain and fear had been terrible, and he understood terrible purposes because they drove against all odds and were their own necessity. And he felt here that he had been infected with terrible purpose, though he did not know yet what that terrible purpose was. That's a very interesting turn of phrase. Ooh, and he wants to know, why do you test for humans? We're getting mentioned here of the anti-technology here, or at least anti-machines. She says, once men turned their thinking over to machines in the hope that this would set them free, but it only permitted other men with machines to enslave them. And Paul quotes, says, "Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a man's mind." And she says, right out of the Butlerian Jihad and the Orange Catholic Bible. But what the Bible should have said is, "Thou shalt not make a machine to counterfeit a human mind." And of course, now we get mentioned that Tufarhawat is a mentat, and these are men whose human minds have been forced to develop. Two chief survivors of those ancient schools of thinking, the Bene Gesserit and the Spacing Guild. The Guild emphasizes almost pure mathematics, and the Bene Gesserit is all about politics. So we're getting some reference here to the genetic manipulation that the Bene Gesserit do. They're discussing it here, and Paul is telling her that you take a lot on yourselves. And the Reverend Mother is thinking to hear criticism in his voice, as she says that we carry a heavy burden. And he says here, you say that maybe I'm the Kwisatz Haderach. What's that? A human Gom Jabbar? She's explaining to him that when a truthsayer is gifted by the drug, we can look down many avenues of the past. Body's memory, but only feminine avenues. There's a place where no truthsayer can see. It is said a man will come one day and find in the gift of the drug his inward eye. He will look where we cannot into both feminine and masculine pasts. Many have tried and died. So we're setting up quite a lot in this first chapter. It's kind of like an information overload to some degree because we're getting mentions of lots of different names, some of which we're going to come to know over the course of the next few chapters and book one. We get a glimpse of the Bene Gesserit breeding program, the fact that Kwisatz Haderach is someone who can look into the past of both men and women. The fact that all men who have tried so far have tried and died, not just tried and failed. So there's a lot going on here, and like I said, one of the things I didn't remember is that this book doesn't use third person limited, so that was a genuine surprise. For some reason, my memories were thinking that this was third person limited, but it's third person omniscient. A really good introductory chapter, although of course, we're opening the door to a lot of questions which are going to be answered as we get deeper into this thing. But I think we know that they're going to Arrakis. We know that he has training from his mother. We know that this woman, this Reverend Mother, is now the truthsayer for the Emperor, so she sees the future for him. Also used to be Paul's mother's teacher, and his mother, despite her position, defers to this Reverend Mother. So lots of really cool, interesting facts here, and we get a little bit of teasing of the past histories of like Butlerian Jihad and the prohibition of machines. The fact that there was the two, the Spacing Guild and then the Bene Gesserits are the two that kind of serve. There's two schools of thinking that survived since the time of the machines. Bene Gesserit's being focused on politics and guiding humanity in that regards, and the Spacing Guild relying on mathematics and predictive math. So some interesting concepts laid out here in this first chapter. So yeah, next week we'll be back with chapter 2. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Let me know your thoughts below. Answer any questions. Ask any questions you might have about things. We'll see you next time, everybody. Cheers.